The myth I chose to experiment with was opposites attract. I would do an experimental research, and so I would gather people off the streets who are willing, randomly, and young and old, and I would bring them to a facility where I would put them in a room for an amount of time, maybe 15 minutes. And so, and I would just have them interact together and see how well they clicked. The independent variable is the time spent in the room, around 10 or 15 minutes. The dependent variable is how well in the end the person said that they feel like they clicked with that person, or had in common with that person. The intervening variables might be their current mood, if they maybe had other things on their mind during the experiment, kind of like, oh, I have to if they have a list of things that they need to do that they felt were a little bit more important than having conversations at that moment. Maybe so they're basically their focus in the conversation may be affected by things like maybe if they were hungry during that time, if they were thinking about food, like, oh, I just want to get out of here and eat because I'm hungry, or if maybe the temperature was uncomfortable for them or comfortable, then they would have possibly, it would have affected their focus in the conversation, I believe. The generalizable factor of this experiment would be kind of moderate, because it would be random people, but since it's off the streets, it would likely be people in the area. So the population would not represent the world, but the people in the area that you were studying. And so it's not quite that generalizable. There would be a bit of a sampling bias because different places have different cultures, and many of the people that you would take off the street, whether young or old, will probably have been raised in a similar fashion and introduced to many of the same things. Although they might not like some of those things, it's still a bias because of culture and people being raised similarly. So what I learned from this is that people tend to believe that they gravitate towards people with differences is because they believe it's that if someone's something that they want to be but are not, then just, because the difference is present, then they feel that means that opposites do attract. However, many people who interacted, they had more similarities in common in their conversations with things that they liked and some of their opinions when they tended to feel that they liked talking with that person. And so, conclusion, opposites don't really attract. So yeah, that is my conclusion.